we got a little problem. You noticed that my face looked weird. If you saw last week's episode, you saw the heads up. But if you did not see last week's episode and you're like, why does Alli's face look so weird? I'm figuring out video. Okay, I got a fancy new webcam. It's supposed to look like a DSLR, which is amazing. However, I accidentally had sharpness turned down to 0 when I recorded the first 2 episodes of the year. I'm leaving it in. Whatever, it's fine. I told you it would be a little bit messy, but if you wondered, why does Alli's face look so weird? That's why Alli's face looks so weird. Next episode, it should be totally fine. Just want to acknowledge, between friends, I know it's weird. You know it's weird. It's okay. I'm going to figure out this YouTube thing. We'll do it together. Thanks for understanding. YouTube watcher, all my podcasts are audio. So I love you. I'm here for you. We're doing our thing. It's just a different outlet. Okay, let's talk about the show. After we talked with Terra, it is time for coaching. We are continuing this coaching series from last week. I hope you did that exercise. If you haven't listened to last week's show, listen to last week's show because I give you 5 questions. These are clarity questions. These are questions that I take my clients through. Really important exercises. It does not take a long time. If you're not a journaler, don't worry. I'm not asking you to change your life. Grab a piece of paper, use your notes app on your phone, whatever you want to do, but it's going to give you great results just by doing this exercise. Because one thing that I've realized, and the research bears this out, generally we do not spend any time thinking about our life, right? I mean, we'll think about what we're doing and this and that, and we think a lot about our kids or a lot about family, a lot about work, but we're not sitting down going, let me examine myself. Let me see how I feel about things. Let me do this. Let me think about life so I can live with more clarity and so I can live with more confidence. We just don't make time for it. So I want to help you make time for it. So I'm going to give you questions to do today. If you haven't done last week's, that's fine. Go ahead and do these today. Don't stop the show right now, but go back and listen to it and get those questions. Now, last thing before we get started, don't forget I am doing 3 free coaching calls this month. If you are an executive or you are a business owner, one of those 2 things, you can apply at alliworthington.com, fill out the application, and 3 people will get free calls with me where you get to hop on the phone, tell me where you're stuck, tell me where you have a problem, and I get to solve it. I do these free coaching calls only 3 times a year, and I love getting to help lots of women be more successful. Okay. Last thing, I'm giving you a book recommendation at the end of the show. And let's get started. Here's my friend Terra. And we're back. Part 2 of this amazing conversation with Terra. I'm learning so much. I know you're learning so much. We finished the last episode talking about the importance of quiet. Now I'm going to ask a question just for me. I got the message that I needed to achieve. I was never, even growing up, no one really thought I was going to be much. I didn't come from a family of achievers. That wasn't me. I had undiagnosed ADD, so I didn't know how to manage it back then. School was very hard for me. But then in my 30s, everything clicked. Like I went, just went, oh, the internet, I can learn anything I wanted. I can do it in my own way. And everything that was inside of me clicked for the first time. All of the different intelligence that I had that wasn't accessed and didn't come out in a traditional way, it came out in this way. I work a lot, but I really, really, really love work. So this is the question I'm leading up to. I do not think I'm a workaholic. I will tell you, I do work on average 55, 60 hours a week if I'm not, so I'll work on a Saturday. We're recording this on a Saturday right now. So if I'm not traveling, I normally will work Monday through Friday, but I'm always done at 5. I'll work a few hours on Saturday. Everyone tells me I'm a workaholic, but I say I'm only a workaholic if I get my value and my worth from work, but I just really love working. Tell me about this. Diagnose me.
Okay, we get to have a session, Alli, you and me.
Okay. Yes.
No, I'm kidding. Okay, so I love it. Well, partly what I know about you, Alli, is your wiring. So we use the Core Values Index that helps us really cue into what was God's fingerprint for you. And one of the things, is it okay for me to share a bit of your CVI?
Yeah.
But you have something called Builder. And Builders in their purest form, love actions and results. And they're doers. They're the gift. And if we didn't have builders in the world, we would all just be sitting around at a table having wonderful ideas and chatting and dreaming, but nobody would actually do anything. And so our builders actually take the football and get it across the end zone. So that is part of that drive in you, that you just love seeing the results of the effort put forward in a positive direction. The merchant side people are relational people. The innovators are idea and complex people. They love to create strategies, which is also part of you. You're a merchant and an innovator as well. And then the bankers are the organizers, and they love the details and kind of fine tuning everything.
God bless
and so
the
when
bankers.
Yeah. God bless our bankers. And so I think thinking about how you're made and understanding that work is defined in lots of different ways for different people based on how they grew up, what they're familiar with. But for you, you finally found something that just is like oxygen for you, and you're living in a lane that you're made for. That is in your merchant, your innovator, and your builder. So rest can look lots of different ways. It might look like working to another. I just was telling my other builder friend, she's a profound builder. She's like, I'm working on Sabbath, Terra. I'm trying to rest. But this is really hard. I said, well, what would bring you joy? She's like, raking my leaves and making dinner for my family this whole week. She's a farmer, so she's got a different kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And so she just took joy in putting on worship music in her ears and raking the leaves and feeling the sun. And she moved into her five senses. But instead of it being fast and furious, she just took her time enjoying it and just having and kind of associating a little bit more of like, this is good. I'm healthy. I get to provide for my family. She's a single mom, so she was just excited to get to make a good dinner for her family. So it's reframing sometimes what work is. Rest is, I think in Christian cultures, particularly, we have clear definitions on what we think rest should be and what we think work should be. And I think we've got to let that go a little bit and go, God and Alli know what that looks like. I will say, not for you, Alli, but if somebody's getting feedback that they're a workaholic, I often would say, go to your inner circle and ask those people. Your spouse and your kids and your closest friends will give you the best feedback than the person on the outside. Because I get the same thing, Alli. People are like, wow, you're so busy. Well, what they don't know is that I'm holding my calendar really tight, and I work really hard, and then I hold my time for my inner circle people. So the rest of the people think I'm just busy all the time, but it's because that's my family time, or I'm going to spend time with my besties over here. I'm not telling them what I'm doing. So they might look like I'm a workaholic, but really I'm just tight on my calendar and who gets my time.
I like that. I think that there are so many messages that we hear as Christian women of what life should look like. And like you say, this is work and this is what rest should look like. But I like how you're widening the parameters on how we think about these things.
Mm-hmm.
So for what makes me feel alive and rested is probably very different than what works for other people. But talk about that importance of kind of widening how we view things and not getting stuck in categories that may have been put upon us by somebody else who didn't know anything about us.
Yeah, and it starts with your first kind of question about familiarity, right? That's a hard one for us to get out.
I messed it up. I said it once and we were done.
For what we're familiar with, and getting out of our boxes a little bit is part of grace. It's uncomfortable, but it's this freedom to say there's a wide variety of what God calls good and very good. And the discovering who we are and living within each of our designs is part of the freedom. But it takes time. It takes other people to reflect back and to tell us. If we all had really healthy home lives growing up, by the time we graduated from our homes, we would know who we are. And as the proverb says, we wouldn't part from it. Raise up in a child in the way that they should go. And when they're old and grow old, they won't part from it. That word means bent. Raise them in the way that they're bent.
Yeah.
And a lot of us grow up not knowing who we are, and we're looking on social media. Who am I supposed to be? We listen to our professors, or we are listening to our colleagues, or hanging out with a group of friends. I mean, it took me a while to feel comfortable in my group of friends of women, because I'm kind of an out of the box person. With my stay at home moms, I love them, but I'm not a full stay-at-home mom. And with my moms who are working, full-time out of the home, I don't fit that either, because I'm an
Yeah.
entrepreneurial and I'm kind of a hybrid. And I'm a mental health provider, and I'm an executive coach, and I also serve the church in ministry. So it's this hybrid place, and it's taken me a while to just go, that's good. I don't have to be one of those. It's okay that I'm all of those, and I've learned to be more of a translator. But it's taken me years to accept that.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of this process for all of us, is to discover, who am I? Who did God make me to be? And I don't think women get that opportunity, because we move from one season to the next. And I would say most of the women in my office, it's post-children when they start to discover who I am. And I feel bad for their children. We've had another conversation like this, but I feel bad for their children, because their children didn't get to see their mom discover who she is, or maybe even parent out of who she is until later in their lives. But okay, I'm rabbiting off to another topic.
No, I love this. This is so good. What I would like to go back to is something that we talked about last week. We touched on social media. As a therapist, what are you seeing with social media? How are you advising people that you're working with? I honestly believe that social media is amazing, but if we don't handle it well, it will kill us. So it's kind of like alcohol. If you have a glass of wine at dinner with friends every few months or however often, it's fine. It's apparently good for your heart. Science is up in the air about that. But if you're drinking a lot of alcohol every day, it will kill you. It will kill your relationships. It will kill you emotionally and your health. I feel like social media is a lot like alcohol. What are you saying? What are you talking about?
That's a really good analogy, Alli. I've never heard anyone say that, and I think you're spot on. And we kind of don't always learn these things till too late, right? With cigarettes, the same thing. Kind of learn later on the impact of them, until after everybody's having problems. But social media, I'm actually seeing a lot of people starting to go off of social media, unless you've got a business or some sort of brand you're trying to market. But I think because everyone's catching up, even the younger generation is starting to want to go offline. We're not wanting to have smartphones. They're going to flip phones.
Crazy.
It is crazy. So we're seeing a little bit of a shift. And I think the only way to do it well, the only way, and this might be too extreme, but is you've got to learn how to know and regulate your own emotions and self-care. And if you aren't doing that, then you're going to be vulnerable to all kinds of maladaptive coping strategies, meeting our God-given needs in really unhealthy ways. And social media, to your point, is just another way to do that.
Can we put a pin on social media and go back to it and dive into maladaptive coping strategies? Because you said that, and like my brain lit up, and I went, we need to talk about maladaptive coping strategies.
Yeah, we all have them a little in a funky way. I mean, you were talking about working can be a maladaptive coping strategy if used to regulate my emotions, my uncomfortable emotions.
I've definitely done that in the past.
Okay, so that's when we know it's an unhealthy alcohol. Am I using it because it's just been such a stressful day and I really need to calm down? I'm using it to calm myself down. So we want to tune into, what is it that I need? What do I feel? What does it need to feel comfort, which is what every human being is looking for. And it's good. That's what God designed. And then how do I meet that need and that comfort in a healthy way? And what's healthy for me might be going for a walk, journaling, having some time to talk with a friend, watching a movie with my husband. There's lots of different ways. And going on social media could be a part of that. If I was a creative soul, or, I needed to explore, some shopping in a healthier way.
Yeah.
But it could quickly move to a maladaptive coping strategy, which is I'm trying to numb out at the end of the day. And just to feel better quickly.
Okay. That's so helpful. Okay. Now back to social media. What else do you think of it? How would you advise us to engage?
I'm a hard one, Alli, because I'm new to social media. I avoided it at all costs. And the reason is I was sitting in my counseling office with every type of person and seeing the impact and how much more anxious, the depression, the insecurity, the pornography, the affairs that were happening. I was just like, this stuff is dangerous. Well, then I became an author and I was kind of like, yeah, you have to get out there and be a social
We
media.
do.
And so I've been really dabbling in. And the moment I got in, I could feel my anxiety skyrocket. And all of a sudden, I felt like a nobody who can't contribute anything to the world because look at all these people.
Meanwhile, you have such professional success and you're literally coaching leaders of major corporations, but social media makes us feel terrible.
It's horrible. And so it took me 2 whole years to learn how to regulate. Like I would dip my toe in and I'd be like, and then I'd have to recover. And I should say I'm probably still not sure how much I want to engage. I'm wrestling because I get it. My upstairs brain understands the purpose. I want to have a voice in a really noisy world that brings hope and maybe a little bit of wisdom. But also at the end of the day, our greatest change and our greatest impact comes from face-to-face, person-to-person relationships. So that's the pull for me. So it's what is my why? Why am I on social media? Am I just, peeking in and being kind of curious about other people's lives? Am I trying to contribute something and speak to somebody out there who needs that I'll never meet, but I want to be able to be a voice of encouragement to? Am I trying to sell something? What's my why? And I think that's what I would encourage everyone is know your why. And I also ask you to ask your kids why. And right now, my teenage girls are not on social media because it's one of the most dangerous drugs for teenage girls today.
Girls, yeah.
And so we've talked about that. And until they have a really compelling why, there's really no need for it.
It's so interesting how it affects people differently. My 22-year-old is only on Snap, but because kids just snap back and forth, it's just what they do.
Conversation.
And my 25-year-old says, "Oh, by the time you're 25, you won't use Snap anymore. You're so evolved." But my 17-year-old boy, he spends most of his time on TikTok. But it's really interesting. I call him Teflon because things just bounce off of him. And he's on TikTok, no ill effects, like just laughing at sports stuff or silly stuff or, animal videos. And just he's happier when he's done than when he gets back on. And it is amazing how different personality types, but I think your gender is really important too. I mean, I realize a lot of boys can be affected by it, but it's girls who are really getting damaged by social media right now. But I struggled with an eating disorder. You know this when I was much younger in high school. And I think if there was social media when I was in high school, I would have never eaten a bite of food again.
Me too.
I mean, so hard. But if your daughter really wants to be on Instagram and TikTok and she's 16 or 17, what are all the things that can be helpful for a mom to remind her daughter?
Yeah, it's really good. So having the conversation and thinking a little more critically about it, going back to Dr. Dan Siegel, I explained upstairs, downstairs brain in last week's episode, and the idea that the healthy brain is using both. So when we are actually engaging, how does it make you feel? And what do you think about this? So being able to do the both and a 15, 17-year-old is still developing their brain, but we're learning to engage that upstairs brain and to think a little bit more critically. I think that's our job as parents is to kind of go, they don't know what they don't know. So thinking about the scenarios, FOMO, the fear of missing out is very real at that age for girls. And so just talking about, so if you see your friends doing something that you didn't get invited to, what are you going to do about that? So walk them through a lot of the scenarios. And if they're like, I can still deal with that, it's a part of life. And if they're ready for that, go for it. And then thinking about how much time. So kind of, I actually would do this with them and thinking, how much time do we think is healthy per day? And then watching it, holding each other accountable, checking your phones. You can see how much data you're using per day and how much scrolling you're doing. We don't have to guess anymore. It's right there for us. So I think just kind of checking in, and it requires us parents to just do a little more work. 15, 17, you're preparing them for adulthood. So it's a good time to practice with you. But I wouldn't just hand it over and think that they can handle it because they're still they're still very much developing, and us adults can barely handle it. So making sure that you're walking with them, talking about it. You're going to get attitude. You're going to get the like, no other mom is talking to their kids about this. So stand up into your own identity and know that you are loved and you are good and that you are being a good mom by doing this.
I love that because it is so important. I mean, if I'm 47 and if I sometimes want to throw my phone across the room, imagine what a 12-year-old is feeling without life experience and language to express how they're feeling.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's tough. And honestly, Alli, so I have a counseling team, a professional counseling team. There's about 10 of us and we supervise them. And our number one thing with these younger teens and younger kids, because most kids have devices and are on social media in some shape, form, we're going for that first. When they're coming in with anxiety, depression, sleeping issues, phones should not be in the bedroom. Most of what's happening is actually between 2 at 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning. And parents are very naive to know that their kids are scrolling, and then they're really crabby because they're not sleeping and they're creating a brain addiction.
Got to get those time limits on the phone. Wow.
Well, it feels really basic, but to be honest, most kids, I'm loving Christian parents, so this is everybody, have their phones in near their beds, even us adults. So put the phone away from your bed.
I fall asleep with an audiobook in my ears and headphones. And
okay.
I know.
It's a dilemma. It's a dilemma. But that's where your kids will be like, I need my music, Mom. Or so come up with some other, like we use old phones that don't have any, so they still have music on them.
Brilliant.
But they have no social media or internet access. So I can still do downloaded books on that.
Yeah.
But we just keep recycling our old phones for our alarm clocks. And then the new phones have all the data and are at a stage somewhere away from all four of us.
That's so smart. One of my kids complained years ago, Mom, you are a cool mom, but you're so strict. And I was like, well, I'm glad I can still get cool in there while being so strict. Because for me, as I raised them, I didn't care about things that weren't character issues or that could, affect their soul. For the rest, I was a cool mom because I didn't care about all the little things. Like, go out dressed in whatever you want. We're not living to impress people, but character stuff, the stuff that can really mess you up long term, like being able to access the internet until 3 a.m. as a young teenager, that I cared about a lot. And it is important for us as moms to always remember that sometimes we're going to do the best thing for our kids and they're going to really hate it in the meantime. But I think that most kids, once they get a few years out, they go, thank you. Thank you for not letting me self-destruct.
They do. And that is love. I think to confuse love with permissiveness or being the cool mom. But it is loving, and that is how God loves us. And, even his laws, I'm doing a study right now, I'm getting off track, but with 10 commandments, and everyone's like, oh, the 10 commandments, like it's old school God, right? And when I'm studying it, it's so profound how much it comes from a place of love. Like, do not steal. It seems kind of basic.
Yeah.
But it's really this idea of, do you trust me that I'm going to provide for you and that I love you? And you don't have to take that person's stuff, right? Like, there's just this idea that these rules are without love. And if we're helping our kids understand, I'm preparing you for life. And underneath everything, going back to these emotional downstairs brain, I'm talking to my girls all the time. And when I'm training leaders too, to think, you're learning to cope. And there's all kinds of ideas out there of how we cope. Some that are really good and glorified, like work, ministry. My girls have learned that when they're tired, it's okay to take a day off and to rest. They're not lazy. They're being good regulators of their bodies and not pushing them to the ends, because I'm preparing them for when they're 35 and they're really tired. How do they care for themselves? So that's kind of the long term, is we're learning how do we cope, and we're teaching our kids how to cope for the long haul. And hopefully we'll choose somebody that's familiar who also values that as well.
I love it. Okay, this is your third show now in 6 months. Get ready. I know you have your own podcast, but you're going to have to start becoming a regular guest on the show. Will you do that in 2024?
I would love to, Alli. I love talking with you. Thank you.
Let's make it happen. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Let's have some quick, fun questions. Number one, a song that you're loving right now.
I am loving these remakes of the oldies, the 80s. Well, those would be the oldies. But there's all these new remakes happening right now in these. I'm confessing that I watch these cheesy love rom-coms. So I would say I'm kind of dapping into some of those. I'm terrible. I'm not a detailed person, so I'm terrible with names and who's singing them. So I can't give anybody credit. But that's what I've been listening to for a little while is all the remakes of the 80s.
We can look it up for you. We got you. What about a book that you like right now?
Actually, I've been listening to Atomic Habits. Yeah, that was a book I read years ago, and I've kind of been revisiting it in light of some research I'm doing on how experiences and familiarity and how our brain's working. So that would be one I'm really appreciating right now. And then I just finished Beth Moore's memoir. That was really good, and always loving a good memoir these days.
You can't beat Beth Moore.
Mm-hmm.
She's the best of the best. Okay. Considering it's our New Year, New You series, do you have any advice for people who go, hey, I really want to invest in myself. I want to change things up this year. What's your professional advice?
My professional advice is pick one small shift and be consistent with it throughout the whole year. So if you're like, I'm going to use an extreme. I'm going to run a marathon this year. And I go, okay, great. Let's start with, do you work out? No. Okay. Well, let's start with maybe 10 minutes to 20 minutes walking 3 to 5 times a week. And if you can get the 3 mark consistently by the end of the year, then you'll move to the next level. But I think our goals get too big, outlandish. That's why we quit. So start with what do I really want to do? And then back up the truck a little bit to something a little bit smaller that you know you will do. And then to Atomic Habits, kind of the familiarity is pair it with something that you really enjoy. So making sure that it's attached to something with some sort of a reward or something that's going to bring comfort and care for you.
I like that. I'm in the process of getting in shape. I've been in the process for months and months. My goal is, even though I'm 47 now, my goal is when I turn 50 that I'm in shape. So I'm giving myself a lot of time because I have a tendency to try exercise and hurt myself and, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I have certain goals. Like I will do this when I reach this goal and this when I can do this, when I can do this. And as an Enneagram 7, I normally don't believe in rewards, but it has been great to give myself rewards that I would normally never give myself for reaching certain goals. It's been a really fun experience.
I love it. We all still have the little girl in us that needs a little star on the star chart.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Tell everyone where to find you, where to listen to a podcast, give them a heads up about the books, just everything, Terra.
Oh, thank you, Alli. You can go to Terra, it's Terra, like terracotta, terra firma. So Terra Mattson, 2 T's.com. And you can learn all about Courageous Girls and my book, Courageous for Women, particularly moms of daughters, and all our leadership development work and our counseling at Living Wholehearted. You'll learn about all those things and our podcast, Living Wholehearted Podcast. So it's such a gift to be here, Alli, and I really love having these conversations with you.
Thanks for joining me. Until next time. That's great. Okay. It's Terra, right? Check out livingwholehearted.com. It'll take you to all of her resources. She is absolutely brilliant. And if you are a leader, if you are a mom, if you are in college, there is something for you. You're going to love it. Okay, let's go into coaching segment. This week, the 5 coaching questions are focused on your relationships. So here are the questions. Ready? Number 1, what was my biggest relationship accomplishment? You know, that person that drove you crazy, or that relationship at the beginning of the year that you thought there's no hope for that relationship? Think through that. What was that difficult relationship for you that you really put in the time and the effort to help? Give yourself some credit for that. Sometimes we do great things and then we just keep on going and we forget to give ourselves credit. Number 2, who were my most valuable relationships with? I think everyone, if you have a family, you're going to say, well, my mom or my sister or my child. Or my spouse. Think broader than that. I think to some degree that's a given, and it's too easy of an answer. Feel free to fill out that answer, but then I want you to think about your relationship in concentric circles, your close family being in the middle, and then you have this outer circle. Think about some valuable relationships in that outer circle. We already know we're going to invest a ton of time in the new year in this inner circle, so think just a little more broadly when you think about that question. And then the next one is, who showed up for me this year and how can I show up for them? So who showed up for you this past year and how can you show up for them as well? Question number 4, who is someone that you got to know better this past year and you want to make sure you keep investing in that relationship? So someone you got to know better that you want to keep investing in. And finally, who do you wish you had gotten to know better last year and that you can invest in this year? What's that relationship where you went, oh, I saw her at the PTA, or I saw her at church, or we met at a work event. Whoever that is, write it down and make a plan to try to get to know her better this year. So we already know the importance of relationships. We've talked about it a ton on the show, and research shows that the quality of our relationships is what determines our long-term peace and our long-term happiness in life. So invest in them. Relationships are the key to our emotional health. Okay, now I want to give you a recommendation. I told you earlier I'm going to tell you about a book. I'm nervous to tell you about this book, because this person is a bit of a firebrand. People either love him or hate him. And so I thought, well, what if I recommend the book and people are like, this person stinks. What are you doing? But I'm not here just to try to impress anyone. I'm here to give you good information and share my life. This person, this isn't the book. I'm telling you the backstory. There's a thinker named Rob Henderson that I'm trying to get on the show. He has a memoir coming out next month, and I'm trying so hard to get him on the show. I'm a huge fan of his work. I pay to be on his private newsletter. He's just really brilliant. And so on his private newsletter, he went through breaking down a series of lectures from Jordan Peterson. And because I trust this writer so much, I went, well, I'll read it, but I hear terrible things about Jordan Peterson. Just who knows, in the ether. And the more of the lecture breakdowns I would read, the more I go, well, Jordan Peterson actually sounds kind of brilliant. So I bought 12 Rules for Life on Audible, and I've probably listened to it 3 times in the past year. I loved it so much that I bought it. I will often buy things on Audible, and then I'll buy the hardback of it, because I want to go through and I want to underline things. I'm visual. I want to dog ear a book and fold those pages down and unwrap things. I love this book so much. I gave it to one of my boys for Christmas, and I love his work. I heard him on a podcast recently. He's writing a book that's going to come out this fall called We Who Wrestle with God, and I'm really excited about it. So if you are like me, and you had just heard terrible things about him, because I think he is kind of nutty political on Twitter, give his work a chance. 12 Rules for Life is such a phenomenal book. I can't recommend it enough. I'm not even trying to get him on the show because he's not going to come on my show. I mean, maybe this fall when he's on tour. But I'm a huge fan, and there's not enough stars for me to give this book. So if you haven't given it a shot, give it a shot. Send me a message on Instagram and let me know what you think. Okay, last thing, I want to do another review this week. This one's from Jessie. Jessie actually DM'd me on Instagram and told me how impactful Remaining You While Raising Them was. And I said, can I be so bold as to ask for an Amazon review? Because the thing about an Amazon review, or a podcast review for that matter, it is how other people find the book. It's just the way the algorithm works. If you leave reviews, whatever, Apple Podcast or Amazon is going to go, oh, people must want to read this book. And I am shameless about asking for reviews, because there is so much content online that is not going to take a woman to a place of wholeness, right? Not going to take a woman to a place of physical wholeness or emotional wholeness or spiritual wholeness. I want to work 10 times harder than everybody who's out there trying to take women to a place that's going to hurt them, right? I remember when we were in the middle of all of the Rachel Hollis phenomenon, and everyone was reading her books and Bible study groups were reading her books. And I was like, you guys, the path of that road of worshiping yourself and saying you are the hero of your own story, that is a road that leads to destruction. And there's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of content that will take women on a road of destruction. So I'm shameless to ask for reviews. I'm shameless to ask you, if you're watching this on YouTube, to like this, to leave a comment, to subscribe, because it won't be long before YouTube commenters come in and say, I'm the worst thing that ever happened to YouTube. YouTube commenters are notoriously mean. I get it. If you're listening and you haven't subscribed or left a review, please do it. If you've read any of my books and you haven't read a review, please do that. We're in a fight online. I want to be careful in how I say it. We're in a fight online to make sure that the things that are beneficial to other women, to other people, to our children get seen and get heard. So I'm shameless about it. So I didn't plan on going on that rabbit trail, but you just got a rabbit trail. So anyway, Jessie DMs me. I ask her for a review, and this is the review she left. So Jessie, shout out to you. She said, if you're a mama, you need to read this book. She said, I just finished it, and it left me feeling empowered to be the mom God wants me to be and my family needs me to be. I cried happy tears and sad tears and grateful tears throughout this book. It gave me the mindset I didn't know I needed. Thank you, Jessie. That's why I write the books. I mean, the books take me 2 years, and it's all my Saturdays for basically 2 years. It's why I do this. And I do it because I love the people on the other side, and I love getting to help. And I love you. I'm glad you're here. I love that we have this time together every week. This is an investment in you. This is an investment in your spiritual health and your emotional health and your professional success, because it doesn't just benefit you, it benefits everybody. I believe in what's inside of you. I believe in your dreams. I believe that you are making this world a better place right where God has you. It's why you're here every week, because you're learning something that's going to help you take your life to the next level. Because God has created you to stand strong and do something special and unique that only you can do. Because you know the truth that you cannot break a woman who gets her strength from God. Thank you for being here. Thank you for enjoying the show. Thank you for supporting the show with subscribing and telling other people about it and sharing it and leaving a review. I'm grateful. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next Monday. Yikes. I hope that was a good show. Ooh, I'm getting used to video. That's crazy. Okay. Okay. Show number 1's done. Show number 2. Here we go. Get my jitters out. Let me pull up my notes. I was like, this is so good. I'm not stopping. Okay. We'll do like 15 minutes.
You're following the trail. I love it.
Yeah.